Hello, I'm Somi Arian. I'm a tech philosopher and the founder of InPeak, a platform that helps entrepreneurs and business professionals stay ahead of the curve in Web3 and emerging technologies. My guest on today's podcast is Duncan Cock Foster, co-founder of Nifty Gateway, which is one of the leading marketplaces for digital art and collectibles. Nifty Gateway was founded in 2018, and within just a year, it was acquired by Gemini. In this interview, Duncan will explain some of the fantastic initiatives that they are developing at Nifty Gateway, in particular their publisher collaboration program, which can also be a career opportunity in Web3. First of all, Duncan, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you giving me your time. A little bit of a background for why we are having this conversation and how we got connected. So I'm in the Proof Discord, and that's where I met Brian, who works with you guys. And I was talking about Steinway. Several times I mentioned, hey guys, like you're doing all these amazing artist collaborations. Why don't you consider working with Steinway? Because I've worked with Steinway. I have worked with them for nearly 7 years now. So I was like, I've got this amazing connection there, and I can potentially broker, a introduction, so there's a lot of opportunities there. And nothing materialized there. And then all of a sudden, Brian was like, do you know about Nifty Gateways and what's happening here? And then we got talking, and it was at that point that he mentioned to me about the publisher product that you guys are coming out with. So I thought this would be a good opportunity for us to kind of dig into that a little bit more and talk a little about your business model of how you're literally going out and finding artists, who are not necessarily typical artists, but like people who could be, releasing interesting art, and unique pieces, which is something that you don't get on OpenSea, So am I right in saying that what you're doing there, it's kind of a little bit more similar to art blocks? Is there some level of comparison there?
Yeah, I would say so. Art blocks also does a lot of curation. Um, I mean, it really for us. It goes back to 2019 when we launched the new. 2019 is when Nifty Gateway got bought by Gemini, and then 2020 is when we launched. At that time, the NFT space was still very, very small, and essentially our diagnosis and our view on the matter was, NFTs need to, in order for NFTs to achieve mainstream adoption, we need to really get people creating NFTs who are capable of getting the attention of a broader audience. And so we spent a lot of time going out and pitching different people, mostly artists who had a big following, outside of the NFT world. We worked with a lot of artists who were NFT native as well. But really our thesis was, okay, if we can convert some of these artists who have a big following and are super well known into creating NFTs, and if we can help them do it well, then we can bring a lot of attention to the NFT world. And honestly, that's basically exactly what happened. It almost worked too well, because we had once we recruited Beeple, and we were the first ones to do a drop with Beeple, and his first drop was a hit, but then his second drop was just pure insanity, because the second drop sold for like $2.3 million total back in December of 2020. And looking back, that was the inflection point of NFTs, where people all of a sudden looked around and they said, wait a second, I can make $2 million selling NFTs. I need to learn more about what these NFTs are. And people went on to do that crazy Christie's auction from there, and that was really the beginning of NFTs blowing up and entering the mainstream consciousness. So that's really always been the goal of Nifty, to try and, we're all about mainstream adoption. The platform is built to be extremely accessible, and a really big part of that is curating great artists and making sure that and helping people release their best NFTs.
Super interesting, because when I think about something like Steinway, a brand that has 2,000 Steinway artists, each of those Steinway artists can have their own NFTs. They could have their own unique, interesting things. And then Steinway releases so many pieces of, limited edition they have done throughout the years, and all the material that goes into, the drawings, the design process, all of those things, all of those things could become, essentially NFTs. So the problem though is that, like, for example, I've been having this conversation with the Steinway team. The problem though is that it's very hard for a company of that stature to kind of like take a risk on something like NFTs. So I'm hoping that this conversation, I will send it to the team at Steinway. There are some people in the company that are, very open and interested in these topics, but ultimately there is a risk, or they see it as a risky kind of endeavor. So how can we make it easier? And not just Steinway. There's so many other luxury brands and unique kind of legacy brands that I personally know that I have worked with in the past. I've done work with Bentley, with a number of other like watchmakers, etc. And it's very hard for them to make that shift. And most of the time, they have this image of NFTs being, Ponzi-nomic, or being, something that is risky, that's like people are losing money in, so there's all of that stuff. So if you were in a meeting with, or let's say if you met, the CEO of one of these companies at a dinner, and you're sitting next to them, and you want to tell them, look, you've got all this mountain of amazing stuff that you're sitting on, why don't you turn these into NFTs, for example, and reach a new audience? What would you tell them?
Well, first I would start by acknowledging that, I think there definitely are some reasons that NFTs have gotten a bad reputation, and especially with sort of like, a more mainstream audience. And I think that's I think that's pretty normal, honestly. I mean, I was just reading a lot about the history of the internet, and the internet started as this like very powerful disruptive idea, like Amazon. Let's talk about Amazon specifically. And they said, we're going to sell books on the internet. And it was an amazing innovation because they could offer all 3 million books that were in circulation. You could go onto Amazon.com and buy them. And Barnes and Noble only stocked about 80,000 titles at the time. So that was an amazing innovation. And for the first, I don't know, year or so, or few years, people were really focused on, wow, this is such an incredible innovation. But then people got too excited about the idea. People essentially started, investing in all these companies that were not doing something that was truly innovative with the internet, that were losing money. And of course, the internet bubble famously collapsed. And so then people went from being too excited about the idea to like too unexcited about the idea. Basically, they went from being like overly positive to being overly negative. They forgot about all the amazing innovations that the internet provided. They forgot about the real value that Amazon provided, and they were just like, oh, this internet thing, it'll never work. That's honestly kind of what I think has happened with NFTs. A few years ago, all people could talk about, or maybe even like 6 months ago, all people could talk about were the amazing innovations. From an artist's perspective, if you're an artist and you live anywhere in the world, you can sell directly to collectors and make a living and you really couldn't do that with physical art. NFTs are this amazing creative medium where you can build projects that wouldn't exist in other mediums. You can build tokens that change and update. And NFTs have this amazing community aspect to them that just doesn't exist in physical art or really any other type of collectible. And that's all people could talk about 6 months ago. Now all people can talk about is the downsides. All they can say is, NFTs are like, yeah, people have lost money. There are NFT pump and dumps, which there definitely have been NFT pump and dumps. And I guess what I would tell them is the same pattern that played out with the internet is playing out here, though, which is behind the scenes of, the mainstream getting way too excited and then way too unexcited. Adoption is slowly, steadily happening, and more brands are figuring out how to use this new creative medium to their advantage. which again is just like what happened with the internet. It took a long time, and there was this huge hype cycle, then this huge disappointment cycle, but behind the scenes, adoption was just on a continuous, steady uptick, and that's the same thing that I see happening with NFTs. I would also tell them that the right strategy will make or break your NFT efforts. We've worked with a lot of mainstream institutions. I would say that the biggest mistake I see them making is that they think that NFTs will be easy. Maybe they read the headlines and they see, oh, people sold a $70 million NFT, or like this person sold a X million dollar NFT, and they think, okay, all I have to do is mint an NFT and tweet about it, and we'll be successful. And in reality, I mean, it's hard to succeed in the NFT medium, just like it's hard to succeed in any creative medium. It's not easy to become a painter, and most painters don't actually sell a painting for $1 million. That's not the expected outcome. You really have to invest, and you have to figure out what works well. And then the third thing that I would say, which is probably a bit of a shameless plug, but Nifty Gateway, because we have easy custody and fiat options, it's much easier for people who are fans of the Steinway brand but don't know anything about crypto to get onboarded into their NFT ecosystem if they offer people a simple way to buy. And we have a lot of data that backs this up. It's the reason that we work with a lot of brands, or a lot of them are interested in partnering with us, because it's so much easier for people to get onboarded into NFTs if all they have to do is create an account and enter a credit card and hit checkout, and then they can learn about wallets, cryptocurrency, etc. later on. But for that initial step, providing them with a shopping experience that's as easy as any other e-commerce experience is incredibly important. So those are basically the things that I would tell them.
That's fantastic. I think, this is coming from you with all the experience you've had, that hopefully will put people's mind to rest a little bit. Now, tell me a little bit about the publisher.
The publisher's product?
Yes. So tell me
Totally.
a little bit about that, because let's say, for example, if I wanted to become, the publisher for, whether it's for Steinway or any other kind of company that in that realm of the luxury brands, the unique brands that you are looking to bring into the space. So how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, the publisher's product, what it does is it transforms Nifty Gateway from a site where we're the ones curating and publishing all the content to a site where other people can have their own curated storefront where they choose which content they want to publish. As I mentioned before, Nifty Gateway, we have our main publishing brand, Nifty Gateway Curated Drops. We've been working with artists for 2.5 years. We've worked with over 400 artists, and we've actually helped earned them over $500 million throughout the lifetime of Nifty Gateway Curated Drops. And essentially what we've done is, reached out to them to get them excited about NFTs, help them figure out what their NFTs should be priced at and how many they should make, given them sort of more general career advice on here's how you succeed in the NFT space. And then over time, as we've curated a roster of artists, we have a group of collectors who have really come to trust our judgment and show it pretty regularly whenever we do a curated drop. And so that's our curated brand, Nifty Gateway Curated Drops. Essentially, the idea behind the publisher's product is to take the tools that we've used to help artists be successful and let other curators use them. And so, right now, if you go on Nifty Gateway, you can go see Nifty Gateway Curated Drops, and you can see the artists that we've curated. But well, I guess this will go live on September 1st. So that previously was the state. But the new state of Nifty Gateway is you can go on Nifty Gateway and you can see, okay, here's all these different storefronts run by 50 different publishers. And we have 33, who's a pretty prominent collector and curator. He's worked with a few dozens of artists and released content from a few dozens of artists. We have a King of Midtown as well. So it's really sort of basically giving people the tools to run their own online art gallery is the way that I would describe it. And I think it'll be very powerful because right now every every NFT platform is all focused on letting creators publish directly and letting them reach their audience directly. We've had the experience, we've been curating artists for 2.5 years. We've seen how powerful it can be. We've paid out more money to artists than any other art-focused platform at this point. And the curation is a huge part of what makes that successful. So I'm really excited to see what other curators will be able to do with these tools. I think, it'll be a new way for people to participate in the NFT ecosystem. Previously, you could be an artist or you could be a collector, but now you can be something else. You can be a curator and help other collectors find great artists. So I think it'll be a really valuable change. And ultimately, I think the number of artists who will be able to make a living in the NFT space full time will go up significantly because they'll have more people who can work with them to help make them successful, which is really, really important.
This is super interesting. Okay, so does this mean that you are letting the publisher take the curator role, or is the Nifty Gateway also having a say in what gets picked?
The publisher is fully taking the curator role on their little storefront. They basically have a storefront that lives on Nifty. We still have we're going to operate Nifty Gateway curated drops the same way that we've been doing it, more or less. But going forward, right now we're just one curator among many on the site. So you go there and there's Nifty Gateway curated drops, but there's also 50 other curated storefronts run by people with different curatorial visions, different rosters of artists, different collector bases.
So let's say, for example, if I become one of those publishers, do you provide us with some kind of training, some kind of education, explanation on what to do?
Yeah, we do. We have a written guide we have guides both on precisely how to use the product and then also advice on how we think people can be successful with the product, because curation is really its own creative pursuit, and its own, you need to be strategic about it. I think the key to being successful as a curator is what I like to describe as the curation flywheel, where over time you get a group of collectors who trust your judgment as a curator, and those collectors say, okay, I'm a big fan of Somi. She always picks the best artists. I know that she'll be able to select the best artists and release work with them. So then more collectors start to trust you. And because more collectors start to trust you, more artists will start to trust you, because they say, okay, well, if I work with Somi, I can get access to collectors that I wouldn't be able to get access to otherwise, because she has this group of collectors that trust you. And then as you add more artists that trust you, that creates more collectors that trust you, which creates more artists. So it becomes this flywheel that feeds onto itself. And as you make progress with both groups, your credibility with collectors helps you get more artists, and your credibility with artists helps you get more collectors. I think that's the key to succeeding as a curator. And that's our guide will be fully public, by the way. It's not only accessible to people who are signed up to be curators on the platform. And then we also do one-on-one calls with our curators. We actually have a Slack channel dedicated to our curators, not a whole Slack workspace where they can ask us questions and say, hey, how much, basically consult with us one-on-one. So we're really dedicated to helping them succeed. And we have a lot that we've learned over 2.5 years of curating artists. There's many valuable lessons.
I think that these different curators that you will be working with, they will each have their own niche area that they can, specialize in. So for example, in my case, I don't see myself as necessarily as somebody who can look at a piece of art that I would find on something like art blogs, and I don't feel like I have the sophistication to say, look at this art and say, oh yeah, this is great art, right? I know that it's very subjective, but the areas that I'm really interested in is for example, bringing in Steinway into this, bringing in, companies like Bentley into this, because they do all these handcrafted, beautiful, unique, limited edition kind of things. And I think that they have a lot of interesting things going on for them. So those are the kind of things that I find very attractive. Or let's say, for example, Bremont watches, right? They would have these really unique, interesting things that they do around fighter jets. Like these are the kind of brands that I'm really attracted to, interested in, I have worked with. And I find these types of things, these kinds, like a whole new niche of NFTs coming into the space. And then as these companies come into the space, they will also bring in their own audience. They will also bring in, they build a whole new kind of fan base in that area. So are you thinking of it as being something that, that is like these different types of art? Or because right now, when you look at the NFT space, like one of the most exciting, most kind of, popular things is generative art. But the area that I'm looking at is slightly different. It's like there are these 100-year-old, 200-year-old brands that are known for their craftsmanship. And I think they have the possibility of bringing something new into the space.
Yeah, completely. I would say that helping bring new types of art and new people into the space is one of the things that we're most excited about with this product. Because actually when we're building this and making decisions about it, we've had some drops before that have been essentially co-curated by us and participants in the ecosystem. And we said, okay, this will be an interesting piece of data to see how well publishers will do. So we researched, what the audience looks like on your average drop that was co-curated by someone else. And actually, on average, around 50% of people who participate in those drops are new buyers to Nifty Gateway. And for some drops, as high as like 85% of the people in those drops are new buyers. So the publishers that we've worked with have actually been really, really successful in bringing a new audience into NFTs on average. And I think that makes sense. We spend a lot of time on our curation and we work hard, but ultimately we have a set of experiences and we have a point of view that's going to, point us towards certain type of content. Another curator like you just walk through will have a totally different point of view and a unique take on it. And ultimately that means that, I think you'll be able to bring in content and people to the NFT space that we wouldn't otherwise be able to bring in. So I would say that's one of the aspects that we're most excited about.
These types of arts that come into the space, through Nifty Gateway, does it mean that they will only be purchasable on Nifty Gateway? How do you make that happen? The mechanics of it, I'm trying to understand.
Well, like a curator will encode a drop on Nifty Gateway, just like any other drop. And buyers, our system is hybrid custodial, non-custodial. So buyers who are new to the space and don't have a personal wallet can just check out and have it sent to a Nifty Gateway custodial account. And buyers who are more experienced can store it in their personal wallet and then trade it directly on any on-chain marketplace. And so no, it's just like any other NFT. It's free to float about the ecosystem. The original drop does happen on Nifty Gateway, but from there, it just becomes like any other NFT that exists anywhere on the blockchain.
So in that sense, it's a bit similar to art blocks, would you say?
Art blocks, you do a mint, it's a drop. Art blocks also, they have their curated drops, and then they also have their like verified, sort of like more open section. But yeah, it's a drop very similar to the art blocks mechanic. And I should also add that we have one of the coolest parts of Nifty is our different drop types. So people can do, you can do an auction for a one-of-one piece, but you can also do an edition where there's a ranked auction for it. So you can say an edition of 10, and the 10 highest bidders are the ones who get to win the piece. You can do an open edition where it's available to mint for a fixed amount of time, and that dictates the number that get minted. And then we have this really powerful thing called rules for buyers, where you can essentially create rules about who can access your NFT. And so, you could say, this piece is only available for people who have a proof pass, for example, because I want to get the proof pass. And that's really, the rules for buyers, we're going to get very crazy and complicated with it. It could even be something, we could interface with Steinway's backend and say, you can only mint this NFT if you bought a piano from Steinway, which I think would be a really interesting dynamic. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that brands can engage their customers with NFTs that are really underexplored right now.
It's definitely a super exciting time for these brands coming into this space. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the role of the publisher. Like, let's say somebody is listening to this and they're like, oh, okay, this could be like a whole new, career space for me. Like, I could build a whole business around it. How much time do you think somebody has to spend to make something like that happen? Are there consideration of any specific kinds of costs to the publisher to get this started as a career path or building a business around it?
Well, there are some small costs when you mint an NFT. All of our drops are a new smart contract. So you essentially have to clone one of our factory ERC 721s, which is pretty cheap. It's cheaper to clone a contract than to deploy a new one. And we've done a lot of work to like hyper optimize our minting. So minting on Nifty is really, really cheap compared to other platforms. So I mean, we did some math at current gas prices, deploying a drop is probably around $30, $20 to $30. So really low cost. We're launching this program for the first time. So I mean, any information that anything I say is basically just a guess and really should be taken with a grain of salt. But I would say that someone who wants to do this as a side hustle could probably spend 10 hours a week and, build a name for themselves as a curator. It's kind of similar to opening an art gallery, a physical art gallery, for example. The difference is if you open a physical art gallery, there are a lot of costs involved. You have to lease a space. You have to deal with the difficult logistics of transporting art to your gallery, hanging art up on the walls. This is essentially a way to scratch that itch of opening an art gallery and featuring artists you like without having to deal with any of the physical logistics. So I think 5 to 10 hours. I think the biggest thing to remember is, as you said, like what can you as a curator do differently to make yourself stand out? And how can you find artists that are underappreciated and then help shine a spotlight on them? And also the other thing that I would add is, patience is important. I think being a curator, it takes time. It really takes time to build up a brand of trust with artists and collectors both. And at Nifty, I mean, our curational brand was very slow to get off the ground, and definitely, I think it took a lot of time before people really came to trust it. And then once people do trust it, you also have to be careful, and you have to make sure that you're making the right decisions, because we've definitely made curation mistakes in the past that we've learned from. But yeah, I think like anything else in NFTs, I think it'll take work, but I think for someone who is, spending all their time in the NFT space, is totally obsessed with the space, and wants to have a side hustle that can maybe transition into a full-time career, this is a really, really exciting option. Because right now, if you want to make money from NFTs, I mean, I guess you can try and find a job at an NFT company, or you can try and flip NFTs full time. This is a totally unique angle, and you're by working with artists and helping them understand the space better, you're like helping push the space forward and helping improve the quality of the NFTs in the space. And I'm really excited to see what people do with it.
I really love that idea. How many publishers do you think could exist? Is there like a limit of how many publishers you would be able to handle or have on the platform? How do you see those numbers working out?
Well, we're rolling out the product in beta with a group of beta users. And a big part of the reason is we want to make sure that the tech works as intended. It's hard to build software, and there's almost always unanticipated bugs. So the beta period is about making sure that everything is working as intended, and the system, it doesn't break down. I think that in the totality of time, there really could be a lot of publishers. There's approximately 19,000 art galleries worldwide. And as I mentioned, opening an art gallery is far, far more difficult than becoming a curator on Nifty Gateway. An art gallery, you have to deal with all these physical logistics. Um, it's very, very, it's kind of a major pain, and yet there's still 19,000 of them. So I think that, easily the number of curators that could be successful is in the tens of thousands. And once the beta period is over and once we've worked out all the kinks, we're not going to limit the people who can be curators on Nifty. We're not curating the curators, if you will. We're like making it an open platform where anyone can try their hand at creating a curated space. But of course, we will have rules that you have to follow, and if you do stuff like minting fake NFTs or trying to sell fraudulent content, that sort of thing isn't going to be tolerated. But we're not going to like select curators based off who we think will be successful.
The reason why I'm asking this is because I can see that my first company, which is Smart Cookie Media, which is a marketing agency, and that's where we work with Steinway. My team run that company by themselves now. I don't have pretty much any input in it. I just sign off on the content. They just show me something when it's finished before they send it to the client. But I don't manage anything else because I'm running this other new business, which is the Web3 platform. Essentially I'm building almost like a LinkedIn of Web3, which is like a platform for education, career development, and networking. So I see this being relevant to both of the companies. So I can see that like I could get my team in the first company that already work with Steinway and the other luxury brands I mentioned, get them to learn this and, help bring these brands into the Web3 space. And then I can see that for our platform, for the InPeak platform, this could be really interesting as a career path that I could, we could create like courses, they're not like pre-recorded courses, they're like live sessions, and I can talk to the Nifty team and explain how this works, share the screen, and like maybe we do a few sessions, and it's like these become like the blueprint of how you become a successful curator. And if this can become a whole new career path in the Web3 space, this is something that I would really love to get behind and push and bring in a lot of people. And I think especially a lot of women as well. This is I think because women love to have career paths that are flexible hours that they can manage in their own way. This could be so attractive to them, but also to men as well.
Totally. No, we would absolutely love that, because I think for us, I think it's not necessarily going to come easily. I think being a successful curator, like, education will help. You'll have to work at it. You'll have to iterate and try new things. And so educational guides are 100% something that we think we need to produce to help curators be successful. And we sort of took as I said, we're launching with one written guide that's not super in-depth, but I think a video course and, an in-depth thing, interviews with curators who have been successful about how they did it, that would be absolutely, that would be enormous. That would be extremely helpful. So 100%, that's something we're interested in.
Awesome. And do you have curators that we can invite already when you mention successful curators?
Yeah, definitely. A few come to mind.
Fantastic. Yeah. So it would be great to feature them on the platform. And we also make the creation of the content, we make it so easy so that you don't have to do a lot of preparation in advance. It's almost like similar to a podcast interview, but with a live audience, and it always helps to have some visual content that you can share your screen and show. It's not on Zoom, it's on our own platform. And it's like really, like people get really engaged, and I can see this being really attractive to a lot of people. How many publishers do you currently have?
We have 50. It's somewhere between 50 and 60. I would have to check with Brian on the exact number.
Okay, so this is such a great time for people to get involved, right? Because it's like the early days of it, and like you have the advantage of being early there. So that's really exciting.
Absolutely, I would say so.
I love it. I think this is great. From where I'm looking at it, I see it as like the best way probably is to kind of pick a niche, right? Pick as a specific area of art that you think, you are really interested in. It can be art, it can be something like, in my case, the kind of like legacy luxury brands that are handmade, etc. So you pick an area that you think, a niche that you think is it's good, because then you can create podcasts around it, you can create content around it, you can help those artists become better known, access more of an audience. There's like a whole kind of business that can be built around it, and then you can become known in that niche. I can see this as a very exciting area of career development for a lot of people. And as we live in a world where machines are going to do so many things better than us. I've actually written a book called Career Fear and How to Beat It, and it's all about how machines are eating up human jobs. So as machines can do everything better than us, these are the kinds of curation, like these are the kinds of jobs or a career path that that only humans can do, because it's all relationship based.
Right. Totally. Yeah, that's actually a really great point. Maybe we should add that to our marketing copy on the website. A machine
Yeah,
will never replace you as a curator.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would also add that it's pretty fun. I mean, people love on our creative team, which is the group of people that do art curation. I think they have a pretty good time. I mean, you get to hang out with artists all day. You get to like talk over their work with them. You get to understand their like art and their careers in like a much deeper way than you would otherwise be able to. So I think it's a pretty like great industry to work in, just because like it's exciting, it's interesting, it's like intellectually stimulating, and like artists are cool. I guess is my one sentence summary. So yeah, I think people will really go crazy with it.
Well, thank you so much, Duncan. This has been so interesting. I have learned so much. I can definitely see this. I'm gonna look into everything that that is developing around this, and I'd love to be involved. I want to get my team to learn all about it and kind of like make that as part of the offering that we already have on Smart Cookie Media, and also then we will do educational sessions about this new career opportunity on the InPeak platform.
Awesome.
All
Well,
right.
it was a really great conversation, Somi. I'm glad you're
Yeah,
so excited. It makes me happy to hear. And I
absolutely.
think that the Nifty team will be happy too, because they've been like heads down working on this product for months. So um
Yeah,
they'll be really happy to see a good reception.
fantastic. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Duncan Cock Foster of Nifty Gateway. We will be collaborating with them on some great educational content and career opportunities via InPeak. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe to it on Apple, Spotify, or any other one of your favorite podcast channels. And don't forget to give it a 5-star rating and write a review. The full interviews are also available on my YouTube channel, The Somi Arian Show.